Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Books and More 1818. Who's our guest today? Well, I'll give you his name and I'll let him introduce himself. Who is he? Well, we have Gene Miller here today. He's an author, but I'll let you hear from him. Hi, Gene, and welcome to our show. I'm so happy to have you. Hi.
Hello, Sylvia. Nice to be here, and thank you for having me. I am a first-time author, and it's been an interesting ride and a journey. I released the book at the end of June last year in 2024. The book is entitled Warning: Short Stories for Middle School Boys Only because Girls Have Cooties. Um, it's a nostalgic 1965 to 70 flashback to growing up in middle school in 65 to 1970 along the Delaware River in South Jersey in a little tiny river town called Delanco, which is just above Riverside and just above Philadelphia on the Jersey side. I am a 44-year educator. I began my career in 1978 teaching junior high, seventh and ninth grade English. 4 years later, the school was overcrowded. Got moved up to the ninth grade. Got moved up to the high school to be a four-year high school, and I began teaching ninth and 11th grade English at Overbrook Regional High School with approximately at that time almost 2,000 students at the high school. Um, Later on, I transferred after about, I guess, 9 years in the English department. I transferred into the history department because I was a dual major at Glassboro State College. And I taught history. I was at Overbrook for a total of 19 years, where I coached freshman football there. I coached basketball, high school basketball there. I coached seventh and eighth grade baseball there. Then I went over to our sister school and coached baseball and varsity football there at Edgewood High School, which is now called Winslow High School. After that 19 years, I got my master's degree from Rowan University, and I went to Hamilton, to the Hamilton High School as an assistant principal for 2 years. And there they promoted me after 2 years to the middle school principalship. And I headed that ship with my staff for a total of 14 years as the middle school principal. I retired in the state of New Jersey after 35 years of service and got hired by Stockton University for the last 9 years to supervise student teachers in the practice teaching in the morning, and I taught a course on campus in the afternoons from 3:30 to 5:30 called Human Geography, which was a lot of fun. So I've taught students at all levels, starting at the junior high and basically going all the way up to college. I've been out now. I've retired since May of 2023, and that's when I started this entire book situation, tightening up and looking to get it published. So that's where my authorship came out of that background in public education.
Wow, you are very accomplished. My goodness. They must miss you. I'm sure they miss you in the teaching profession. My goodness. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Glad to know you. We love
Glad
teachers.
to know you.
Mm. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about your book. This book is a collection of 15 captivating short stories that will transport you back to the groovy 1960s. Can you imagine a time without the internet, cable TV, cell phones, GPS, or streaming TV? That's when these stories were crafted. I remember that time, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm a kid of the 70s. I grew up without computers, cable TV, and yeah, all those things. But he's going to tell you about his amazing book, which got me so nostalgic. I loved it. It was great. So if you haven't read it, it's called what? Warning, short stories for middle school boys only because girls have cooties. I read it. I'm a girl. I loved it. You'll love it. Boy, girl, doesn't matter. Young, old, it really doesn't matter. It was great. I love it. So I'm going to shoot a question at you. What is the audience this book is written for?
Good question, Sylvia. The my passion for the writing of the book was because I had received the gift of Storyworth from my son and daughter-in-law in December of 2021. And have you ever heard of Storyworth previously?
No.
Storyworth is an online book writing program, and you get a question a week for 52 weeks, where it would be a question about your life, and you will write a small 2 to 3 page vignette about the question. So it would be like, what was your father like growing up? What was it like to get your first car and your car license? Where did you go? What did you do? Who did you hang out with? So those questions will be generated weekly, and I began receiving them in the middle of January 2022. And in the end, the situation was I'm an only child. My mom got ill. Then my mom ended up in hospice. I was teaching at Stockton University. My wife helped out greatly. But in the end, mom passed and I wasn't able to write. I just couldn't function. You know how you have to have a clear head to write these things. And I it kind of time kind of passed into September. I went back to work and teaching at Stockton. And a few mom I passed in June. So I finally got my head clear and I said, oh my, all my three children are waiting for this book, which will be hardbound in the end after all the 52 weeks of stories are filled. But I only answered 6 questions. I had a whole book to fill. So my oldest two grandsons were entering third and fifth grade. Our middle school begins here in Chemung Township in fifth grade. So my oldest grandson was going into fifth grade, and I thought, wow, I can't believe he's that old that fast, number one. But number two, I remember some of the greatest situations, adventures of my life were when I got into middle school. And I started on reflecting about my grandson being in middle school and my other one following behind him. And I started to think of these stories about growing up along the river and all the crazy things we did and all the adventures that we had. A lot of them dangerous, some of them adventurous, and some of bad decisions made that we suffered the consequences for. But in the end, I put together the book. I finally got 35 chapters in this book, and it got published into the Storyworth hardback version. And I couldn't make up my mind on the title. So this was on the title, but I knew if I ever pulled just the short stories out for my grandsons, the title of the book would be this.
No Huckleberry Finn, but my early adventure along the river. I like it. Yes.
So when that finally got published and the kids liked it and other people got a chance to read it, some of my professional colleagues that I had worked with previously in the Overbrook district, in the Hamilton district, at Stockton University and Adolescent Lit told me that some of these stories could possibly be publishable. So I went ahead and followed up and I contacted a book coach out on the West Coast named Greta Myers, who I'd met on LinkedIn. And I said, Greta, can I email you a couple of these stories and you comment and tell me, is this worth pursuing to publish or not? And
Wow.
she said, send me one story from the beginning that you wrote, one story in the middle, one at the end, and I'll tell you how it's going. Well, she got back to me with the first two stories and she said, these are terrific. Wow. You need some work. She made some recommendations and she said, you know what? If you want to hire me, I'll become your editor for these first two stories and we'll see how it progresses. So I hired Greta. She edited the first two stories. Then she had deadlines to meet and had to leave me. She flipped me over to another freelance editor who was a friend of hers, Nicole Job out of Idaho, I believe, and she edited the third one. But in the meantime, I've been querying. I put out 20 query letters to literary agents trying to get a publisher, and I was rejected on all 28. 18 rejections and one resubmit and 9 ghosted where I never heard back from ever again. So I was desperate in to get this thing out. I didn't want too much time to go by, so I decided to self-publish, and it was recommended to me that Palmetto Publishing was a very dependable and very good publishing publisher house for indie writers. So I contacted them, and they came up with an editing package for the other 13 stories. So they ended up editing the last I guess 12 stories, and they put the whole thing together for me. But they told me that we don't like your title. I'm no Huckleberry Finn. That's boring. These kids in 2025, 2024, they don't want to hear about Huckleberry Finn. So that's why the crazy title I came up with. I had 24 hours to come up with a title, and I said, well, if I come up with something that's a little shocking or offensive, maybe it'll get people's attention. So even though I kind of took a shot at the ladies, it's not. It's number one. The book is really geared for guys, but middle school girls are protagonists in the story as well, in the stories as well. So they're in there. The girls are in there, but the boys are the sort of the center of the world. So the book was written for middle schoolers, but what has happened is I submitted it to Kirkus for a review, and Kirkus informed me that that it was well done. Get it? I got the Kirkus thumbs up, and they told me that the only thing different is this is not a middle level young adult read. This is an adult nonfiction slash memoir. Read, and it's nostalgic in that way. And I think I've sold more books to adults, probably in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, than I have to middle schoolers, because the nostalgia brings them back to that more simpler time that we're overwhelmed with all this technology now, but they like going back and visiting that time period. But it's interesting also in the book, because it was written originally for my grandsons. I have chapter lessons in the back. So every story comes with a chapter lesson that breaks down the vocabulary, a new vocabulary terms, the root words, the prefixes, the suffixes, critical thinking, writing prompts, and cross-curricular research ideas. So I think that in the end, the book is written for middle schoolers, but in the end, I believe that adults with nostalgia find it best a best fit for them.
I totally agree. And I love the vocabulary in the back of the book. So I think definitely because I'm in my 50s, I went way back. I got very nostalgic. I loved it. I loved the zany adventures. I thought they were amazing. And also, yes, definitely. I mean, you can learn a lot from the book, middle schoolers. I mean, it's a fun read, definitely. Boys will be boys. You know,
Yeah.
I really liked
And
it.
I tried, Sylvia, I tried to write with each each of the 15 short stories are standalone. Each one teaches a life lesson to a middle schooler about that situation that I had approached, including bad decisions with consequences that came with those decisions, like the bow and arrow shooting games that
Yes,
we were playing and that kind of
yes,
thing.
yes,
Breaking into the Beverly dump and climbing around there and getting captured and that kind of thing.
yes.
The But in the end, I think that the thing that sells the book, besides the nostalgic, is the humor that's involved, because I do write with humor. My personality, those that I've probably taught over 4 or 5 thousand students over the years. So my students have always enjoyed. Most of my students have enjoyed my classes because of the humor that I bring to class. So there's a little entertainment element in the book, kind of like in my classrooms.
Now, let me throw another question at you. What are the reviews from your readers and professional reviewers saying? What are they saying about this short story collection? What's your feedback on it?
Well, thank you for that question, Sylvia. I told you about the Kirkus review. That was a big one. Um, I previously, before the book was published, I had Reedsy Discover review the manuscript before it was published, and they came out with they have the Reedsy Discover Trophy Award, and that's a 5-star review, and I received that from the Reedsy company, and that reviewer indicated that my writing style, in descriptive writing style, was very similar to Mark Twain and Robert Louis Stevenson. Obviously, I was very honored. First, I was shocked, then I was very honored, but I didn't get a big head about it, or get too puffy about it. But it made me feel good that I could market the book and feel safe that I had written a quality collection of short stories for middle schoolers or nostalgic adults. So that's kind of how that went. The big shock came when the people were getting the books through Amazon and Barnes and Nobles online. Um, the reviews were coming out all 5 stars. So I probably launched a streak of almost 28 to 38 between Barnes and Nobles combined, probably like 38 5-star reviews coming right out of the chute. Unfortunately, a couple people from the neighborhood that were much younger than me and weren't a part of this group of people I was hanging out with at the time, they got a hold of the book. And because their mother and brother was in one of the stories, they took offense to the story. I had no intentions to insult anyone at any time in writing those stories. And obviously, you've read my book, so I don't believe you found anything offensive to anyone in there, do you?
Absolutely no. Absolutely not. Not at all. No, I didn't
So
find anything offensive
because
there. No.
because their mother is deceased now, they felt that I insulted their mother and their brother. So they took me to task and they said all the stories are made up. None of this never happened down in the neighborhood. None of this stuff ever happened down on the river. Yet they were in diapers when they were in pull-up pants when I was, running around on the river. And one of them said, well, the river has never frozen over and you've never walked on the frozen river to Hawk Island. And this past January, we had a week of really cold weather. We're at 9 degrees at night and about 20 degrees in the daytime was the warmest.
Oh
And I
yeah.
took a drive over there. And this was before this bad review came out. I
Right.
took a drive down to the river and I walked out with my camera and I looked and I was shocked and I was so happy. The river was frozen across to Pennsylvania. I went out on the frozen river with my camera and video on, and I walked on the river frozen and you could hear the crunching, you could hear the ice
Oh,
popping, and I was going out in there. I could have
dangerous.
disappeared again. Back then,
Dangerous.
I was 10 or 11, but
Don't do
as a
that, ladies
heavier
and
old
gentlemen.
guy,
Don't do
you
that.
so
Uh-uh.
I posted it on my Facebook page. So
That's
when they
right.
came out and attacked me, said the river never frozen, and you never walked on it. Well, 3 weeks before, it's posted on my Facebook that I did. So people in reviews can say whatever they want. You can't really respond to anything, but I want you to know that every story is true. It's a nonfiction collection of 15 standalones, and every one of those incidents happened. Is there a little bit of embellishment? Sure. And the other thing is, I'm almost 70 years old. So, my memory isn't always as crystal clear as it should be. But the bottom line is, every one of those stories happened. As a matter of fact, they also took a shot at me that I insulted a big rich palm and his mother. But his mother sent me a letter and I responded to that letter, and she thanked me for bringing Rich back in the way that she remembered him and how much fun we used to have as kids. I wrote back to her and I thanked her for that. And I apologized to her because I thought maybe I had maybe said something that is insulting to her, referring to her as a Baptist Bible toting mom on the neighborhood block. And she wrote back to me and she said, I am honored to be called that. Now, these guys that criticized me in the review that they gave me a 1 on, they said I insulted Rich Palm. I insulted Mrs. Palm. No, I did not. I have written proof of Mrs. Palm twice. After the second letter, I got her number and I called her and I invited her to meet me for lunch. So her younger daughter came to the Pandora Diner on Route 206 up near Columbus in New Jersey. And we had lunch. We broke bread. It was so much fun. We reminisced. We talked about Big Rich. We talked about Mr. Palm. And it was funny. Mrs. Palm's daughter said to me, she goes, there's only one thing I didn't like in that story. And I go, what's that? Or she goes, in a different story. I go, what was that? She goes, you referred to my dad looking like Homer Simpson. I didn't like that part. And I go, I can understand that, but he really did. So I wasn't necessarily lying. So, and Mrs. Palm was all right with that too. So, sometimes your critics aren't necessarily accurate with the criticism, but if they didn't like the book or they were offended, I apologize for them being offended. But if they don't like the book, that's on them. That's freedom of speech and reading and that kind of thing. But overall, other than those 2 reviews, those 2 brothers hammering me, everything else is 5 star.
Great. You deserve the 5 stars. And if anyone knows you, I mean, I don't really know you, but I'm getting to know you a little now. You're very humorous. You're just all in good taste. You're just throwing humor into it. You were a teacher. I mean, take everything too seriously. Don't do that. You know. I'm going to throw another question at you. What are your thoughts on adolescence? Which is the main theme in all 15 stories? And are there any themes in the stories?
Okay. Each, I think, again, because the book, when you write for middle school boys, especially, um, boys do not like to read overall in general. Girls love to read for some reason. If you look at them split by male and female, female seem to like to read more than the boys at middle school. I've been trying to get my middle school grandsons to read more. So what I realized was by not writing a novel, but by writing a collection of short stories that would hold their attention longer and be able to read faster. To include the humor makes it an enjoyable read. To add the adventure and to add the life lessons with some consequences that were serious at the time, that they're all important. But in the end, each story has a different theme. One theme, I was in the Cub Scouts. I wanted to become a Boy Scout. I wanted to go camping. My father fought in the first year of the Korean War, and he slept on the ground at minus 38 degrees below zero in the snow up in North Korea and from 1950 to 51. And when he came home, he said, I'm never taking you camping. We're never sleeping in a tent. You're going to have to join the Boy Scouts and to do that. So I joined the Cub Scouts. So it was a Cub Scout story. I was playing in the school band. Eventually, the Beatles came on the Ed Sullivan Show in February of 1964. And suddenly, I didn't want to play the trumpet in the school band anymore. I wanted to play in a rock band and I wanted to be a drummer. So every story has a different theme. The underlying theme is the growing up and being an adolescent in the middle is very difficult, even today. And that's the theme.
Okay. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. So, where can we reach you? Where can we purchase your book? And thank you for coming on my show. I hope everyone comments, likes, shares this video because it's important. Where can we reach you and show us your book again?
You can reach me at www.gene, Gene, Gene Miller 56.com is my book site. This is my book. And
Okay.
the book is available from my book site. It goes right to Amazon Books, free shipping, also Barnes and Nobles, and also Walmart. So it's available in all four formats. It's available in soft cover, ebook download, Kindle download, and also it's audiobook.
Great. Sorry for running out of time, guys, but thank you so much for coming on my show. And it was a pleasure. Buy his book. You're going to love it. You'll be nostalgic. You really will. Trust me. Okay. See you everyone soon
Thank you,
again.
Sylvia.
Thank you. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone. Bye
Bye.
bye.